guys didn't see. However, in the moment that I acted, I was acting to protect the situation, protect my brother from further harm.
Maurice Scott just got a big in court, and y'all, challenging social media is not a good thing. Powerhouses like Black Titanic better come with facts, receipts, and a strong case. But Maurice and the OWN network found they were in a legal mess that made them look quite guilty. Then precisely what went down? Maurice expected this lost suit to pay off. How did Black Titanic turn the script on them? Prepare, since this case just turned around in a direction none noticed. Reality TV stars deciding to bring their battles from the small screen to the courtroom under legal action against Black Titanic. A social media commentator highlighting the behind-the-scenes drama of love and marriage alongside the OWN network can quickly cause mess. Huntsville, but here's where the real action is. Instead of leaving, Maurice discovered himself completely unprepared, confused, and ashamed in court, from weak arguments to a judge lacking it. Actually, this case is among the most often discussed court battles in reality TV history. Today, we are exploring closely why Maurice Scott and OWN network decided to sue Black Titanic, the primary courtroom errors that made Maurice look foolish, and what this suggests about love and marriage.
Doing is admirable as a spouse. To roll over and suffer through it, I look at it as her standing by me while I'm standing by her. There's a difference between wants and needs. I'm a person who actually needs sex, not a person who wants sex.
Why do you need sex?
I need sex like Carlos needs mess.
Trust me, you'll understand why this case could be among Maurice Scott's worst mistakes by the end of this video. Thus, grab your popcorn. This tea is about to boil hot. Let us start correctly. Beginning at the dawn, exactly what motivated Maurice Scott and OWN network to bring Black Titanic before audiences. Social media analyst and blogger Black Titanic has been outspoken on the behind-the-scenes drama of love and marriage Huntsville. She is not sure exactly how. LAMH has grown a strong following by analyzing the cast of the show, pointing out differences, and most importantly, exposing items that many feel OWN network and the stars of LAMH do not want the public to know. The worst of it is that Maurice Scott was not only furious about internet rumors. Sources say he and the OWN network felt Black Titanic was spreading false information, damaging reputations, and even crossing legal lines by using copyrighted material from the program. If you have been following Love and Marriage Huntsville, you already know that Maurice has had his fair share of scandals, from shady business dealings to dubious loyalty in his marriage to Kimmy. So naturally, when a blogger like Black Titanic started gathering old receipts and piecing together the puzzle, not only were Maurice and the network unhappy about it generally, but things didn't stop there. Reports claimed that Black Titanic's content had started to become rather well known, even influencing public view of the show's stars. As the show's platform, the network most certainly saw this as a threat to their brand, particularly if Black Titanic's claims were generating bad press. People were contesting the veracity of Maurice's company endeavors, reputation, and even actual on-show performance. This led to what? Maurice Scott was not ready for the legal fight she was embarking on. Thus, things started to go quite bad, even if they followed the legal path, suing Black Titanic to either silence her content, force her to stop using their material, or even have her social media accounts closed. Now, Maurice Scott and the OW network most definitely felt they had a strong case when they decided to bring Black Titanic before courts. Maybe they believed their legal team, authority, and power would be enough to silence a social media commentator, but they neglected how unprepared, weak, and quite embarrassing their legal arguments would prove to be. Let's break it down methodically, since this courtroom drama was even more appealing than a Love and Marriage episode. According to sources, one of the biggest mistakes Maurice and OWN network made was showing court without enough solid proof to support their claims. Maurice and his legal team tried to argue Black Titanic was spreading misleading information and damaging his reputation, but the judge quickly questioned them by asking specific instances of statements made by Black Titanic that could be proven as factually false and defamatory. This first and most important lack of solid evidence is one of Maurice and his legal team tried to contend. Guess what? They had not much on show for it. Defamation cases demand more than just declaring she's talking about me and damaging my reputation. Many of Black Titanic's observations on real events, receipts, and things Maurice personally had said on television were based on facts. You have to show that what she is saying is false. Black Titanic brought up Maurice's questionable business methods. Was she lying or only repeating already published facts? If she brought up his earlier remarks on his marriage, was she creating something or merely interpreting what he had said? The lack of solid evidence was the first clue this lawsuit originated from unstable ground. 2, trying to silence a commentator backfired. Maurice and Own also greatly undervalued in the digital era of today the power of fair use rules and free speech. Particularly when publicly available network data is being used, bloggers and commentators have the right to investigate, challenge public figures and reality TV stars. Claiming to be using show copyrighted material, they might have thought they could stop Black Titanic. Fair use guidelines, however, protect editorial freedom, criticism, and news reporting. Black Titanic had every right to use fair use short clips or discuss show events if she so wanted. When the legal team tried to forward this argument, the judge immediately objected, reminding them that opinion and criticism are not illegal. Actually, the lawsuit drew Black Titanic more interest, more supporters, and more participation than it subdued. It was a complete backfire, exactly the opposite of what Maurice and his own intended outcome was. 3, the court was not having it. Here is where things really become rather embarrassing. Several sources claim Maurice struggled to precisely explain what he was even suing for during the court hearing. Sometimes his assertions ran counter to one another, perplexing and annoying the judge. Y'all, that courtroom had loud silence. The judge apparently even questioned Maurice and his lawyers at one point about why they believed Black Titanic's material was actually causing actual harm. Things deteriorated from then as Maurice and the network started fumbling their case in real time without a clear, legally sound case. 4 Black Titanics showed up, ready, and battled fiercely back. Black Titanic was not backing down. Rather, she arrived at court bearing receipts, confidence, and a strong defense instead of Maurice Scott and the network attempting to present their case. Black's legal team merely defended her, but they reversed the tide and exposed grave flaws in Maurice's claims. She showed how much of what she was discussing already came from freely available knowledge. She pointed out historical instances of OWN Network benefiting from public criticism, so why was she under target attack now? She showed how willingly Maurice Scott and other reality TV stars would show their personal life on camera. Why then, when someone only once looked at it, was it suddenly a problem? Maurice seemed clearly uncomfortable according to accounts, as Black Titanic's lawyers analyzed the shortcomings of his case, and let's say the judge was not impressed with every weak argument that was disproved. Maurice's situation was not turning out as he had hoped, and just when he thought things could not get worse for him, they did. It became ever more obvious. Instead of leaving court with a white, he ended up embarrassing himself in front of everyone, the judge, the legal teams, the media, and most importantly, the very audience he was trying to silence. Let's exactly how everything fell apart right before his eyes. Maurice Scott was in for a nasty awakening. Maurice also Scott right at the start of the procedures. Maurice and his team still had some degree of confidence. Maybe they thought they could overwhelm Black Titanic with legal jargon, intimidate her into backing down, or use their network's influence to control the situation. But as the hearing progressed, the judge's patience started to wear thin. Many sources claim that the judge obviously grew irritated as Maurice's lawyers struggled to present a strong case. One of the most embarrassing incidents happened when Maurice was directly asked by the judge on why he believed Titanic's content was legally dubious. Was it false knowledge? Was it kind of personal harassment? Was the network or he personally in financial trouble? Maurice stammered over his words, unable to give a clear answer, and that's when the judge allegedly leaned in, inhaled deeply, and called out the weak case foundation. Witnesses claim the judge specifically told Maurice's legal team they were wasting court time presenting arguments that came apart under legal review. Let us pause here right now. For a judge to essentially call you out in court, do you know how bad your case must be? Wait though, for Maurice it gets considerably worse. 2 Black Titanic strikes back, exposing the hypocrisy while Maurice was attempting self-defense. Titanic's crew was rebounding very powerfully. They presented a strong refutation exposing the hypocrisy of Maurice and OWN Network completely. First, they pointed out that bloggers covering the show, social media buzz, and online comments have long benefited the network. Bloggers, YouTubers, and social media critics help to keep marriage and love in part intact. Huntsville, relevant on the network, has never had a problem with free promotion from bloggers and influencers until lately. Why then were they suddenly trying to silence Black Titanic? The defense maintained that Maurice and O were more concerned with narrative control than with defamation. Stated differently, they hated criticism and were looking for a lawsuit to try and quiet a voice they couldn't control. This case involved the public as well as the judge, and then came the last nail in the coffin. Maurice battled his own past words. At this point, the courtroom was already slanted against Maurice Scott, but what happened next completely damaged his reputation. From Maurice personally, whose public remarks ran counter to his court testimony, Titanic's crew obtained direct quotes and past interviews. Maurice had openly shared his personal life on Love and Marriage Huntsville. He had made controversial business claims on television, and he had addressed relationship rumors and drama on public venues. How then could he now argue that a blogger looking at that same content was once compromising his reputation? Maurice apparently looked clearly uncomfortable as the court was reminded of some of his own words and actions. Even the judge seemed uninterested, with sources claiming that there was a moment of total silence as Maurice's own contradictions were exposed before everyone. Maurice Scott had arrived before court with a weak case, a bad plan, and a complete misreading of media commentary 4 years ago. In that instant, it became agonizingly clear. Maurice and O Network realized they lost and were panicking. The interesting thing is that once a lawsuit starts to fall apart, you have two choices. Scuttling for a last-minute argument will help you to save face, embrace loss gracefully, and move on. Maurice and his group chose option 2 and tried shifting their argument in the middle of the hearing instead of only stressing defamation, desperate to regain control. They started contesting that Black Titanic was unfairly focusing on Maurice. On Network, she was generating financial losses due to her content. They claimed the material was harassment and she was exaggerating with her criticisms, but none of these claims were supported by actual data. If it were financial loss, why were they not seeking criminal charges given harassment was the nature of it? Why could they offer particular instances whereby Black Titanic was fabricating claims? Where was the proof showing my network was losing money? Maurice and O clearly lost the lawsuit by then, and there was nothing they could do to stop it from falling apart before their very eyes. Maurice Scott loses big time on the last ruling, right through the last-minute attempt to change arguments. When the judge at last made her ruling, Maurice Scott and his network suffered a total disaster. Important lessons from the decision were Black Titanic was cleared of any guilt, the lawsuit was dismissed due of insufficient evidence, and Maurice and O were attacked for starting a weak, baseless case. Maurice Scott essentially lost a humiliating sum, but this lawsuit only made her more powerful, bigger than ever, not even the worst part. This lawsuit neither silenced Black Titanic either. Once Black Titanic won, and Maurice's public humiliation after the court ruling, her name became trending. She drew thousands of new fans. Maurice, well, let's just say his reputation suffered. More people than ever started reading what she had to say as a blogger. Marital love and partnership. The supporters of Huntsville started wondering about his intentions. On social media, his poor case handling was much parodied. Even some of his own supporters agreed the lawsuit looked bad on him. In the worst possible sense, this entire process failed. Maurice Scott ended up exposing himself instead of proving he was a victim. Now, with his reputation damaged and the internet roasting him left and right, the main question is, can Maurice Scott ever recover from this embarrassing legal loss? Finally, words, what comes next? Will Maurice Scott publicly address this loss or try to pretend it goes away?